Welcome everybody. This is the PNW Zoom post session. Tonight's topic will be the Acb template builder, and Steve in IVW has a presentation for that. It's going to be recorded. So Steve, take it away and share your screen whenever you're ready.
Alrighty. Well, good evening, everybody. Let's see how this goes here. Come on. So hopefully that's not too small for everybody. Does that work okay? Then Cat gives me a thumbs up.
Yeah, it looks
Alrighty.
good.
So a couple of housekeeping points real quick. I can't watch the chat at the same time, so hopefully Dave or Brad will. So if you have questions, chunk them over in the chat, and I will do my best to answer them later. I do have a stop or a pause button. I do rewind if need be. So if you have a question, if I'm not clear, please stop me so I can make it right. And with that, we're going to talk about building the code plugs using the Anytone Codeplug Builder and a couple of tools that are present on the system. Part of the database project, actually the final salvo from it, besides creating the talk group picker and fun stuff like this, there is a button on the picker page here that is the directory of the PNWD Acb files, which Acb stands for Anytone Codeplug Builder. How original. And if you click on it, it will take you to this lovely page here. There's several things that you can do. There's an information page here that just got updated today, and what I will do is open that and let you see what's going on with that. If you see any typos or anything in there, please let me know and we'll go from there. So it gives you an overview of what we're doing, what the files are, and the steps to go through for basically building your code plug. It's a fairly straightforward process, actually. And some details down at the bottom. And of course, the biggest and best of all of them is be sure and save your current stuff before you do anything. Otherwise, you could wind up in a pickle. So with that said, let's look at the files that are in there. First one was the information.html, which is this deluxe version of the web page. The next is the Acb tools that we'll be looking at directly. There is the analog PNW community datestamp.csv file. This is where all your FM analog channels can be put and saved for later. Digital others, if you have other digital repeaters such as Brandmeister or somebody else doing odd things with DMR, you can stick them in here, make their own zones, and go forth. The digital repeater files, this is the basic file that is created every night directly from the data from the C bridge, so it's as accurate as we can get it. This is regenerated every night. It's not incrementally updated or anything, so what's there is as fresh as it can be. I'm going to skip the next one for a second, and then there's the talk groups PNW all file. This one is also created every night out of the database, and this is the table that the system uses to generate the digital repeaters matrix file, along with a couple of other matrix files. And then finally is the PNWDigital repeaters.zip, and that is the collection of those 4 files all into one if you want to just click on it, download it in one shoot and match. And then there are a couple of starter plugs in there, and we can go back, oops, there. And here are the 4 files that we were just talking about, along with the PNW repeaters.zip. So a couple of things. First off, don't mess with the talk groups. It messes everything up. So what's in there is basically the talk groups that we're using. You can click on a file and it will just conveniently open it for you. This is what's in the talk groups file. It's really uninteresting. And I don't suggest clicking more than once. The analog file, this one's really quite handy. And what it does is lets you bring in your analog channels. Notice up here you can create the different zones for them, call them whatever you like, and put in the channel information for it, or actually the channel name, and then the transmit and receive frequencies over here, and the subaudible tone if it's required, the power level that you want it to come up on. And this is the example file. I just pulled it straight off the system. Oddly enough, none of the repeaters on there are the ones I use, so I guess I get to blow these all away. At any rate, this is what this file does for you. It's not real entertaining, but if you have analog channels, this is where you would place them. I'm not going to go through the digital others. Well, I'll go ahead and show it to you. Simba. Basically what's in there right now is just the simplex channels that we have, along with a smattering of different simplex channels. These are the 4E, these guys here are part of the, actually it's all of them in it, Mike. These are all part of the sanctioned WWARA, come on, stop it. Simplex and duplex files, repeater pairs that were made. They're not coordinated. You're free to use them. First come, first serve. If there's interference on one, go pick on another one. That was in response to nobody knowing where in the world to go put your hotspot and or do simplex even. So that was what those are. You can put other digital channels in here, obviously, for whatever purposes you may have. The next one in line is the digital repeaters file. I'm going to go ahead and open it, although it's going to bellyache at me. No, it didn't. That's what it looks like when you open it up, and it's kind of messy. I like to go through and dress them up just a little bit. That's why you keep seeing this file pop up. So this is what that file looks like. And all I do is put the names vertical, compress the columns so that everything lines up a little easier. Makes it a whole lot easier to read. If you look at the discussion page about this, once you have this digital repeaters PNW all file, this is a fantastic place to go in and edit and do anything that you want to do to the thing before you actually generate a full code plug, which is going to be the next step. So are there any questions on what I've shown you so far? Put everybody to sleep. Perfect. Okay. So the next step is go to the two Acb tools and select the Acb Tool Info. From here, we're just going to go browse and pick up our files that we want, which are over here in digital repeaters. So there's my analog file, the digital others, the big file, the digital repeaters, and the talk group file. And you're pretty much done. You can alphabetize them or use your sorting. If you had sorted them over in the basic code plug, it will maintain those. You can sort it with analog channels as the first channels. And for some reason, I remember it coming by months ago, digital repeater nicknames, that's the 3-letter abbreviations. For some reason, I think Andrew turned that on full time, and I don't recall why. So at this point, you just click on upload, and your because we have more than 50 channels in the list, it's wrong. I think it's 79 or something of that nature. That's why you're getting these warnings on the scan list that there's more than 50 channels, and it has been truncated to the first 50 channels to keep the CPS software happy. In this case, just go ahead and save the file. And if you go back into your directory, you should now have the Anytone Zip File sitting in there. And this is just in your regular downloads directory. Double click and extract all. And that should give us a folder, downloads Anytone. And here are all the channels and stuff ready to go into the Codeplug Builder, or into the Codeplug, excuse me. So, that thing's in the way. What we need next, where are you, is this guy. And this is what I did not put on that new thing. So under Tool, on the menu bar up here, you have the option to import. And where you're going is to the downloads directory, Anytone, and pick up channels, zones, scan list, and talk groups. Click import. Watch the little blue bars do their little dance. Ever so slowly. And part of the reason this is running so slow is there is a lot of channels in here. 1,680 some odd channels, I believe. So this does cause it to take a little while, but then it'll finally stop. It's still thinking. Thank you. So now if we go and look at our zone, you can see we have every zone known to mankind imported into the Codeplug. And at this point, you can go in and edit it if you're so inclined and pull the channels out of them. I will tell you this is a very, very hard way to go about doing it. There's a couple of different statements that can be made about the size of the Codeplug and how to deal with it. You know, putting special characters so they sort at the top or at the bottom or here or there. A lot of people prefer to have everything under the sun in there. Everything under the sun winds up being an awful lot of stuff that, quite honestly, it's never used. The beauty part about this is you can go over here and do a save as and save this as, you know, a date stamp with, you know, everything in the world in it. So where are we at? I don't know what the day is. We'll call it that and be done with it. So I'm going to call that dash all and stop it. Sorry. I know. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm brain dead. There. Okay. So at this point, you're free to upload this to your radio. Hopefully it's got the right stuff. And there you have it. You just built the Codeplug from everything that's generated basically automatically for you. It would be nice, and it may happen one day, you never know. For me, in my particular mode of operation, I find this to be entirely too much information to carry around. So if you want, if you want to shrink your code plug and make it a little bit more digestible and things that are relevant to you, going back to the digital repeaters _all is an excellent opportunity to pretty much trim away the stuff that you don't like or want. Like a lot of these, just simply, I will never go there. So I really see no reason to have them in there. And so I get rid of them. And I'm not going to go through and do the whole thing, but I think you get the idea at this point. And the other thing that you can do is pull out talk groups that you don't want. Like, all of these guys that just really don't make a whole lot of sense, and you don't want to look at them every time that you fire the radio up. So you can just selectively delete what really doesn't matter to you and keep other stuff in there. And I'm going to go through and get rid of all these old tags. Don't really care about the worldwide, stop that. So, blow them away. And it makes a much more compact code plug. The fun thing is you can save this. So we go find the Anytone. I'm sorry, I'm not used to working on this small of a screen, so I have to go find stuff again. Anytone Codeplug Builder, where did you last run off to? This is not going well there. So all I have to do is pick up the digital others file, go down here and get the one that I want, which is him, upload it. Notice that we're below 50 files now, so we didn't get any warnings. If I have not messed with the scan list, honestly, so I don't know how well it works. But with a smaller code plug, at least you do get full scan list and things should work better. Should being the operative word. And just went ahead and downloaded it because I already had one. It decided to rename it with a 1. We'll extract that. It makes its own directory. And we go back into here and go to Tool, Import, Channel. Oh, yeah, let's see, where am I? Downloads, Anytone 1, Channels, Zone, Scan List, and Talk Groups. Import. Import is complete. And you can see on my zone list now that things are, come here, where'd you go? Not cooperating. All right, you are, let's forget. Notice our list got considerably smaller here, and actually Codeplug I run's even smaller than that, but in the interest of time, I quit playing. The other thing is if we go into like Bellevue, Cougar, you'll notice that I lost a lot of channels here. This particular site has got somewhere north of about 40 channels, and it gets really annoying to have to sit there and spin through them to try and find the channel you want. So I tend to trim my code plug down to stuff that I'm going to use. Again, this is, everybody has their own options and ideas of what works best for them. I'm pointing this out just strictly to show you that it is very easy to customize your code plug using the default tools, and there you have it. So I've said a lot. Hopefully it made sense. Do you have any questions or concerns in there?
Steve, in the chat, there was one question from Scott, KB7RSV, about this working on 868, or is it just 878?
It'll do the 868, 78, and 58. If we look over here, wherever it went, stand by while I find my head. I've lost everything. Go down there. You'll notice in here, there is the N7 EKB tool. This is Ed, I don't remember Ed's last name. Does the MCOM.net on Sundays evenings. This tool is actually was built about the same time that the Acb tool was built. This one is much more for the hands-on kind of folks that know Linux and want to get out there and fool with it and really just get down into the nuts and bolts about what's going on. The other thing that's pretty handy about it is the number of radios that he's got it working on now. Besides the Anytone, he's got Connect Systems CS800, OpenGD77, and the MDUV 380, 390 pair. So if you happen to have any of those, you may want to check out Ed's tool versus the Acb tool. That takes the same input files, so you don't have to worry about that. Just download them, massage them, do what you want, and run them through the tool of your choice, load them up into the customer programming software, the CPS, and load your radio. It takes or makes a rather complicated process about as easy as we can make it, and still leave you the flexibility to do what you want with the code plug, rather than let's just see how much junk we can pack out there and let you go with it.
Right, and the information is coming right from the source. So, you know,
Right.
Otherwise it's garbage in, garbage out for those who are maybe not detail oriented. Sometimes that's all of us.
The old computer axiom.
I've had to I've had to do so many files again because I offset by a space and did a whole bunch of work in the wrong places, and you know that's on me.
It can be frustrating.
Yeah, a lot of time you really get the weeds with these code plugs to make them work the way you want them to work for you. And I'm kind of in the camp with you. I don't keep a lot of extra stuff in there. There's only certain talk groups I really care about. The rest of them, I really care less.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. Mike
Right.
is one that enjoys having the entire enchilada, which is fine. If you're out running around working on a bunch of different repeater sites, and yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense to have those loaded up so you can talk to them. It's all what the user wants in your radio and to make it work. And Dave, you said there's another question.
Yeah, there is a question from Dale W7HLO asking why there's the initial caution to keep the hands off the talk group CSV file.
The initial caution.
Steve,
Yes.
initially, when you first glossed over that file, you said, don't touch this file because if you do, it'll mess things up.
Well, let's rewind and see what I was talking about.
That would be one of the things that I would want to add some Brandmeister talk groups to.
Okay, so where you would want to go, I just closed everything. Give me a second. Oh, where do you want to go? Oh, I give up. Here. I'm going to have a jillion windows open before the night's over. So the digital others is where you would want to go to
add a talk group?
No, to add your stuff. Oh, I know what you're talking about. So the file I told you not to mess with was the talk groups file.
Right.
Yeah. This one, if you mess with this one, it upsets the ACB program really bad, and it will pitch it out. So this is a point where you probably have to go and use Ed's tool, because I've noticed honestly, it's been at least a year since he created it that I've messed with it at all. But he does give you the option. Let's see if I still have that open somewhere.
So in summary, if I add a couple of talk groups to that, it's going to mess it up.
If you do on that particular file, it's not going to do you any good. If you take them out, it will die. If you put any in, it's probably just going to ignore them because there's not a match or a mate for them in the digital repeaters file. You have to remember those two files are kind of linked at the hip.
Yep. Okay.
The workaround is to put any special. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
The workaround is to put any special channels digital into digital others. So if you have a few Brandmeister channels, you can put the frequency of the repeater, color code, and the talk group in it. And it's a discrete set of channels that you can put into a zone. So that way you're not messing with the talk group file, but yet you're able to put in specialized talk groups into digital others.
That's correct. So here is the description of the digital others, and does give you the option for putting the talk group in at that point.
Okay.
One of the other things, if you go through this, is he lets you do excluded repeaters, excluded talk groups. It gives you a lot more flexibility in what you can do and how you can manipulate and massage the data. But quite honestly, this, if you don't know Linux and you don't want to mess with it, it's probably not worth messing with, honestly. The Acb tool is nice and straightforward. You plug in your files, you get files back, and away you go. I have not tried the digital other file, simply because I don't have a need to. I suppose I could do it one day just for kicks and see what happens. What other questions? Did that help, Dale?
Yeah, it did. I'm still debating whether this is a tool that's even going to work for me, but Um, for the most part, I just use the community plug. The only changes I make is I add about, I can't hit a repeater from where I live. There are none. So
Yeah,
everything I do is through a hotspot. So,
gotcha.
and I share a radio with my wife, and I can't be hitting the menu and trying to change DMR IDs in the middle of a net. So what I do on my code plug is I take a handful of talk groups that are on one of the servers, and I replicate those channels only with their duplicates, only they have my wife's ID on them. And then I create a zone for her so we could quickly switch to her if she wants to talk on a net. And then I add some talk groups and some channels for Brandmeister. And I add 5 channels that allow me to control my open spot via my radio. And I'm just taking the community code plug and I'm doing that all manually. But it's not that big a deal, but it's a real easy way to make a mistake. And
Yes.
so my thought was, if I took one of the Acb input files and added my own stuff to it and then color coded it in that input file and saved it, then the next time I go to do one of his input files, I could cut and paste from the old input file to the new one, that color coded stuff that I had added, and not be manually doing it every time I have an update to my firmware and everything.
Right. Okay. Like
Maybe-
Mike said, the digital others PNW community, this file here should be the answer to what you're wanting to do.
Okay.
And the beauty part is you can save this with a name that doesn't get overwritten and just select this one versus the blank one that comes down if you take the zip file.
Right.
And the same thing with your analog channels. You know, you can load those up, keep them in a dedicated analog file, pull them in, and you should be good to go. And you don't have to redo it every time.
Sounds good.
I may have missed that, but I would say create your own digital others file and maintain it the way you want. And then when you do the community code plug and you bring in the standard digital others, just copy your work at the end from 16 on, giving it all the correct names, and it'll blend in. You could put like Cascades. You check in, Dale, on Cascades, as does your wife, all the time. So you could create 2 discrete channels in your file that would end up in the one of your zones. Just by giving it the same zone name, it'll insert that file right into the community zone. And one file could, I think this supports the, oh, it doesn't. I thought it would support 2 IDs, but Digital Others doesn't support IDs, so that wouldn't work. I thought you could have both your wife and your IDs 2 adjacent channels, and you just switch quickly channel up or down, and you have the new RID. But Acb support those IDs. So, but anyway, getting back to it, you can still create your stock list, copy the newest newest Acb input list, and pull all that in. So it's just a few clicks and not too much work, because you're maintaining your own secondary file to be added into the primary community file, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's what I was looking for. Yep.
Yeah, that's actually the workflow I use too, is I bring in, I maintain my own analog, my own digital file for others. And then I bring in the PNW files to get a fresh coat of paint on the PNW files while keeping all my own stuff ready to integrate in. You can put in Brandmeister, you can put in other talk groups, you could put in other systems if you travel to another area, if you're going down to California or Arizona or Texas, wherever it might be. You can put in other repeaters down there, differ the zone name if you want to do that, however you want to do that, and then just maintain those yourself, and they'll just integrate in with your own files. As far as one other thing that Steve showed, as far as dropping the repeaters from the input file, another way to do that that gets you almost to the same place is to delete the zones in the radio once they come in. It still leaves you the channels in the radio, which is they're not necessarily very accessible there, but that might be an easier way of going in and getting rid of stuff without tampering with files too much.
I have a slightly tangential question, Steve, on these simplex simplex frequencies. So is it okay to choose any frequency in the 2 meter or 70 centimeter band that's approved for simplex, or are these specially approved for digital DMR use? Do you know?
Well, I'll tell you, in VHF, simplex channels are far and few between, and you're going to have to deal with everybody else that lives on simplex, especially if you have any kind of thing, any kind of an event going down. They're going to get slammed just because there's only like a dozen. So the whole Puget Sound area is trying to work with those few. The ones that I highlighted here, these were set aside strictly for DMR use. For simplex hotspots or duplex hotspots, you can use them simplex between yourselves if you like. And there are a few channels, 441 being one of them. I think there's, what is it, Mike, 4 of them that are UHF simplex channels. They're not necessarily dedicated to DMR.
Offhand.
Yeah, there's a couple out there, but you know, it's shared with analog, so there's nothing dedicated to a mode per se.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So one other question that came up, Tyler, KI7 Victor Victor Kilo, was saying that he had hundreds of channels on top of what is inside his code plug, and they are not very easy to program as frequencies are in a ton of different locations. One of the things that I played with, you can, under the tools here, there is an export. So you can go in and export your channels and zones, and you get a file that looks strangely similar to the input files that you've been playing with. So you can take your cluster of channels and put them either in the analog or the digital other folders, and even using the same zone names like Mike mentioned, they will sort and wind up in the same zones. So you, again, don't have to enter in all of those special ones all by yourself. And the fact that he's got them in there, there is a way to extract them. There's actually 2. One is to pull the channels out and do it manually, which is incredibly painful. And the other is from Andrew. And once again, if you happen to like to play with Unix, give me a second to find it, lost it again, there. So to the earlier question, the answer is yes-ish. if you have a machine that can run Perl code. He has an ACB undo link in there that will read the exported CSVs from the Anytone CPS and try to create the CSV files that ACB uses. So you can pull those out and then transfer those over into the appropriate CSV file for use going forward.
And you should be able to run that on any Apple machine too.
True. You can run it on a Windows machine. You just have to download Perl, which is usually Strawberry Perl, but it'll run fine. The big problem is most of this stuff's done in Perl, so it kind of helps to understand Perl a little bit, or not Perl, but Linux, excuse me. What else can we do? No more questions?
Very helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Indeed. And I've been rolling my own all these years.
But you know, there's something to be said for that, because then you understand them.
Well,
yeah, but it gets old.
It can.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
every time if I want to go across the state and, you know, those I-84 guys and all those repeaters are adding, man, I had to add all those to my radio here recently. And I rolled them, but, you know, you get a flow going with cutting and pasting, and it's not bad. And I can fine tune it along the way. But if you're just starting out with a new radio, this does a lot of the work for you, and it gets it into your radio presumably pretty accurately. So then all you have to do is fine tune it and move things around to your preference and take out the stuff that you don't care about. So this is a good way to start out. Absolutely.
And there's another statement to be made here. You know, go ahead and build the full code plug. Grab all the files, shove it all in there, and then save it. You now have that file, it's ready to go. And you can build smaller files that suit yourself and load that. And if you're, well, I'm going to Oregon, so I'm going to be all around down there, build you up an Oregon file. And I mean, they're simple to load. You open up the CPS, you open up the file that you saved and blow it to the radio and take off. It's not quite as convenient as just having them there on the radio ready to go, but it's another way to approach it. Especially if you're a homebody like me and I've got a half a dozen repeaters that I really care about being able to work. Yeah, I limit the brain damage as much as possible. That and I'm lazy.
Well, there's a tool there to help you do the work. That's not necessarily lazy.
Well, let's say I'm a lazy appliance operator.
You underrate yourself, my friend. All right.
Thank
I
you.
don't know.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
You're welcome.
That's a good introduction, because I never used the tool, so I got a lot out of that personally. I'm gonna put it to use. I'm gonna build a new plug with that and see how it runs.
It's the way to go. I wouldn't touch a code plug any other way now. I've gotten very spoiled to this.
Yeah, I think,
If
Mike, that's
only
what
we
you're
could-
doing, the community stuff, right?
I'm sorry?
Mike, he's running the community stuff. I think that's what the way you're running it, Mike.
Yeah, I'm just using exactly as Steve said, without all the extra overhead, just taking those files that Steve has pulled out of the C bridge and import them into CPS and freshening the community plug and publishing it.
Very good.
So anybody wants to take that over, that'd be dynamite too. But it is pretty simple. It is pretty simple to do. And it would be laborious to try to keep up with PNW with what we're doing. Just one person trying to keep a code plug up to date with all the repeaters.
Well, yeah, back in
It can
2014
be
with the,
done, and like, yeah. Well, Brad, you said you get into a routine, or a rhythm, and you can, I can create a zone with a new repeater in maybe half an hour, 50 channels, because I copy over an existing close cousin zone, and then I just go in and change the frequency and the label and instant clone. So you can come up with various methods to speed up the process, but the error potential is huge. A typo, messes up a channel, and you may not know it until you're out and about and you want to, and you can't. So the Codeplug Builder is dynamite with the files that Steve is able to extract out of this. It eliminates all the error. Same with the picker. That picker shows the talk groups on each repeater, and it's accurate. Unlike when I did it manually, it wasn't. I didn't keep notes originally, and we grew and grew, and there were problems reported, and I had no clue. Now with Steve's help, I have insight into the C bridge that I never saw before, because the C bridge doesn't show you all the various ways to look at the data that's in it. It's very limited. It's a GUI, in fact, and it's very laborious to program. So now, if I don't have the tool, I can say, hey, Steve, I want to see this and this now from this perspective. And, if he's busy, it takes 15 minutes. If he's not busy, I get it in 2. So it's really handy to have all that work that Steve put in. It was well over a year parsing the C bridge and making the extracts actually work. So it's been a huge boon. And all these other things, the community code plug, the picker, the matrix, all this stuff now just kind of flows from that big basic parsing work. So anyway, kudos to Steve. Thank you very much for the presentation and 2 years of work.
Dave, K7MTD, I've got a question, and I apologize for getting in here late. My normal links for getting into the Zoom meeting wouldn't work. I had to do it the old-fashioned way and enter the information. My question is, when you export these from the Codeplug Builder, when you have your new CSV files, are there any issues of editing those? And that's about when I came in, when Steve had them in his spreadsheet. Is there any issues with editing the CSV files? And I use LibreOffice. Is there any issues?
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't tried. At this point, I mean, let's open it up and see what's in there. So let me go ahead and take up the whole screen with this one. As you can see, this is a lot of information in here. And I mean, you can go in if you're that brave and try and pick your way through it and build them or fix it or alter it.
No, I guess you were deleting some rows of information when I first got here.
Okay, that was
edit the lines.
That was in the input files. So this is okay. Hold on.
Yeah, other than
I was going to get too many windows open.
Yeah, other than the caution on the talk group one, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, just deleting talk groups out of that will make ACB throw up and die.
Okay.
You can add new ones to it. I think it'll just ignore them. This is the file, the input file, digital repeaters, PNW all that we bring in from outside, or well, from the tools that build it. So this is the file that is much easier to go through and edit and drop stuff or add stuff as you please. As far as the PNW provided stuff. If you've got others, then the digital others is the file to go play with, because that will bring in other things on the digital others here. Right now, this particular one just has simplex channels in it. But you can put in duplex channels, you can put in Brandmeister channels, whatever you want, and just save this file as your special file and use it instead of the trash file that we send.
Right. Okay, so if I went into
Or
the
create your own.
right, okay.
True.
So if I go like you did, Steve, there's a lot of places I will never probably go. So if I go into the digital repeaters and just delete those lines, I would be okay.
Sure.
Yep, okay.
You lose all the simplex channels. But
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
you bet.
Was there one other question before Dave? Or was it, I heard someone else trying to say something.
And
Yeah,
the question is,
that may have been me. I was going to throw out a comment about the Motorola CPS thing. Oh, no, I remember now. 868s, I was reading in the chat going back and forth here that somebody said the format has changed between the 868 and the 878, but make sure you're using the latest 868 firmware and just try it. I'm curious if anybody actually knows what the differences are.
I haven't been exposed to that, so I can't really. I was under the impression it worked with all, but.
Well, I've got an 868. I'll try it.
Yeah, I have one too. I'm going to go ahead and probably try it as well. I figure it ought to be pretty easy to see because since you're just importing CSV files, if you extract what's already in an 868 CSV file and look at the column headings, if those are all the same, it probably would work.
It should, yeah.
Yeah, you would think.
There
Until it doesn't.
Yeah, until it doesn't.
There have been some CSV file changes from Anytone. I think that they have changed a couple of column names, and they've added and switched around some columns.
And that would be a problem.
Yeah,
right.
that would be the issue.
So Andrew has had to make updates to the tool to handle that. That would be the main concern out there. Kind of similar to what happened tonight that was brought up on the net with the 578, I think, where there's a couple new columns in there.
Is there any more questions for Steve and the ACB process?
Yeah, on topic.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. Again, thanks.
Thank
Steve.
you very much.
That's good
Welcome.
stuff.
My pleasure.
All right. We'll call it a night, guys.
Thanks, Steve.